The blizzard warnings started early that evening, long before the snow actually arrived. Local news anchors kept repeating the same advice: stay indoors, avoid travel, roads will ice fast. I listened while lacing my boots, already committed to the night shift. When you work third shift at a logistics warehouse on the outskirts of town, storms don't cancel work. They just make it harder to get home. By the time I clocked out, the world had changed. Snow fell sideways, thick and aggressive, swallowing streetlights and blurring the familiar into something unrecognizable. My car was already buried up to the tires. I scraped the windshield, started the engine, and told myself the drive would be slow but manageable. It always was. 10 minutes into the highway, visibility dropped to almost nothing. The road disappeared beneath fresh snow, leaving only faint tire grooves from vehicles that had passed earlier. The radio crackled with emergency alerts, then went dead into static. No music, no voices, just the sound of wind battering the car like it wanted inside. That's when I saw the hazard lights. A vehicle sat half off the road ahead, angled awkwardly toward the ditch. I slowed, my headlights barely cutting through the storm. As I passed, I glimpsed a shape in the driver's seat, someone sitting perfectly still. No waving, no signal, just a silhouette. I kept driving. A mile later, my gas light flicked on. I cursed under my breath. I should have filled up earlier. The nearest exit was coming up, leading to an old service road and a single gas station that barely stayed open in good weather. I took it, tires crunching over ice, my chest tight with the kind of anxiety that creeps in when you realize you're running out of options. The station was lit but empty. One pump worked. The building itself looked abandoned except for a flickering open sign hanging crooked in the window. Snow piled against the doors like it had been trying to bury the place for years. As I stepped out, the cold hit hard, sharp, painful, immediate. The kind of cold that steals your breath. I started fueling, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the lights. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, careful, crunching snow. I turned, heart jumping, expecting a stranded driver. Instead, I saw a man standing just beyond the light's edge. No coat, no hat, just a thin jacket flapping in the wind. His face was hard to make out, but his posture was wrong too still, too deliberate. "You okay?" I called, forcing calm into my voice. He didn't answer. He took one step closer. My instincts screamed. I finished pumping without hanging the nozzle properly, jumped into the car, and locked the doors. As I pulled away, I saw him raise one hand, not waving, pointing, toward the road I'd come from. The service road was worse than the highway. Snowdrifts swallowed the edges, and the trees leaned inward like they were closing ranks. The storm intensified, visibility shrinking until I could barely see the hood of my car. Then the engine sputtered. Once, twice, it died. Silence rushed in, broken only by the wind. I tried restarting it. Nothing. That's when the headlights behind me turned on. A car idled a short distance back, barely visible through the snow. Hazard lights blinking. Same pattern I'd seen earlier on the highway. The driver's door opened. Someone stepped out. I stayed locked inside, phone shaking in my hands as I tried to get a signal. No bars, no service. The figure moved slowly, deliberately, boots crunching closer. A knock echoed against my window. I didn't look. Another knock, harder this time. "Your car won't start," a voice said, calm and close. "You shouldn't be out here alone." My breath fogged the glass. I stared straight ahead, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. "I can help," he continued. "Just step outside." I remembered the man at the gas station, the pointing, the stillness. "No," I whispered. The knocking stopped. For a moment, I thought he'd left. Then the passenger door handle jerked. Once, twice, locked. The wind howled louder, swallowing sound, swallowing thought. I slammed the horn, over and over, the noise tearing through the storm. The figure stepped back. The headlights behind me shut off. Silence again. Minutes passed, maybe more. I didn't move. My hands went numb, gripping the wheel. Finally, distant lights appeared ahead, orange, flashing, moving. A snowplow. I hit the horn again, sobbing now, relief breaking through terror. By the time the plow reached me, the other car was gone. No tracks, no footprints, just fresh snow, smooth and untouched, like nothing had ever been there at all. I got towed home. The mechanic later said my engine hadn't failed, had simply frozen temporarily. Perfect timing, he joked. I didn't laugh, because ever since that night, whenever a blizzard hits, I remember the hazard lights in the snow, and the voice that knew I was alone. The snow started falling hours before midnight, thick and heavy, the kind that erased sound and made the world feel padded, unreal. By the time New Year's Eve officially ended, the blizzard had swallowed the city whole. Roads were closed, buses stopped running, emergency alerts buzzed nonstop until most phones died from the cold, faster than their batteries could keep up. I was stuck. My apartment was only 3 miles away, but every rideshare canceled, and the last train never came. I stood outside the hospital where I worked, breath fogging hard, watching snow pile up against parked cars like they'd been abandoned for years instead of hours. I should have stayed inside. I knew that. But exhaustion makes you reckless, and I told myself I'd walked farther in worse weather before. I tightened my scarf, zipped my coat, and started home. At first, it was almost peaceful. The streets were empty, wrapped in that strange blizzard silence where even the city seems to hold its breath. Streetlights glowed like halos, snow spiraling lazily around them. My boots sank deep with every step, the crunch loud in my ears. About 10 minutes in, I noticed footprints. They weren't mine. They appeared beside my path, slightly deeper, spaced farther apart. Someone taller, someone walking the same direction. I slowed. The footprints slowed too. I stopped. They stopped. My heart thudded. "Hello," I called, immediately regretting it. No answer, just wind. I told myself they were old, half filled by drifting snow, maybe from earlier. I kept going, faster now. The footprints stayed beside mine, never crossing, never fading. When I turned onto a narrower residential street, the footprints followed. That's when I heard breathing. Not loud, not close, just present, like someone exhaling into a scarf in the cold. I stopped dead. The breathing stopped too. I spun around. Nothing. The street stretched empty in both directions. Snow erasing detail. Distance impossible to judge. No doors opened. No lights switched on. The houses looked abandoned. Windows dark, buried halfway up their frames. I laughed softly, nervously. "Get it together," I muttered. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Not crunching, not sinking into snow. Walking, clear rhythmic steps, like dry pavement. Wrong, completely wrong. I broke into a jog, lungs burning as the cold bit deep. The footsteps didn't speed up. They stayed perfectly matched to mine, jog for jog, step for step. I ducked into an alley between 2 apartment buildings, barely wide enough for a car. Snow piled high on either side, untouched. As soon as I entered, the footsteps stopped. I pressed my back against the brick wall, chest heaving. "Please," I whispered, not sure who I was talking to. That's when I saw the footprints in the alley. Only one set. They started halfway down, as if someone had simply appeared there, and they pointed straight toward me. I backed away, nearly slipping. My phone was dead. My fingers were numb. I was 3 blocks from home, but the alley suddenly felt endless. The footprints advanced, not one by one, all at once. The snow compressed in front of me in a smooth, deliberate line, like an invisible body shifting its weight closer. The air grew heavier, colder, sharper than the storm itself. I ran. I burst out onto the next street and nearly collided with a parked car half buried in snow. I ducked behind it, crouching low, shaking so hard my teeth chattered uncontrollably. The footsteps returned, slow, patient. They stopped right beside the car. Something leaned down. I couldn't see it, but I felt it, the pressure, the closeness, the sense of being examined, like it was deciding whether I was worth the effort. A voice whispered, barely louder than the wind, "You shouldn't walk alone in storms like this." It wasn't threatening. That terrified me more than anything else. Headlights flared suddenly at the end of the street, bright, real, human. A snowplow lumbered through the whiteout, engine roaring like a lifeline. The pressure vanished instantly. No footsteps, no voice, just snow. I ran toward the plow, screaming for help, sobbing so hard I could barely stand. The driver pulled over, bundled head to toe, eyes wide when he saw me. "You okay?" he shouted over the engine. I nodded, unable to speak. When I looked back, the street was empty. No footprints, no tracks, just smooth, untouched snow, like nothing had ever stood there at all. I got home safely. But ever since that night, I've noticed something strange. Whenever a blizzard hits and the streets go silent, I sometimes see footprints outside my building in the morning. Only one set, and they always stop right below my window.